There's a vault in Manhattan where Fortune 500 executives store their biggest disasters. Not to forget them, to weaponize them. While you're taught to hide your failures, they're turning theirs into billion-dollar blueprints. What do they know about losing that's making them unstoppable? This changes everything. Why? Your fear of failure is exactly what keeps you powerless. Let me start where most people end, with the uncomfortable truth. Nassim Taleb, the mathematician who predicted the 2008 crash, wrote about something he calls anti-fragility. It's not resilience. It's not bouncing back. It's getting stronger from chaos. While everyone's playing defense, the real players are engineering their own earthquakes. There's a practice in ancient Stoicism called voluntary discomfort. Seneca would sleep on stone floors, fast for days, wear rags. Not because he was broke, because he was training his mind to handle loss before it happened. Modern billionaires do the same thing with their companies. They stress test everything until something breaks. Then they study the fracture patterns. Power Law 17 states, keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. But here's the twist nobody talks about. When you've failed publicly and survived, you become unpredictable by default. People can't calibrate your limits because you've already been to hell and came back grinning. Ensis Rule 18. It's better to seek forgiveness than ask permission. In the failure economy, this translates to move fast, break things, apologize to shareholders later. Mark Zuckerberg's entire empire was built on this principle. Each mistake was just expensive market research funded by other people's money. Here's what keeps you trapped. You've been conditioned to see failure as a permanent stain. They see it as temporary data. You avoid risk to protect what little you have. They embrace catastrophic risk because they've already mapped the exit routes. The game isn't rigged. You're just playing with outdated rules. There's a theory floating in dark corners of the internet. Some legendary comebacks weren't comebacks at all. They were planned demolitions followed by strategic reconstructions. Destroy your own empire. Eliminate weak partnerships, rebuild with total control. Paranoid? Maybe. But look at the patterns in tech acquisitions and hostile takeovers. What if the thing you're most afraid of losing is the exact thing preventing your breakthrough? But this gets darker. There's a specific ritual these people perform when everything collapses. And it's not what you think. How elite circles turn catastrophic losses into market dominance. Walk into any executive mastermind, and you'll notice something disturbing. They're not sharing success stories. They're running failure autopsies like forensic investigators at crime scenes. Every bankruptcy, every product flop, every lawsuit is dissected with surgical precision. This isn't therapy. It's intelligence gathering. In the 1980s, Toyota developed something called the 5 whys. When something broke, they'd ask why 5 times to find the root cause. Sounds simple until you realize each why peels back a layer of comfortable lies you tell yourself. By the 5th why, you're staring at uncomfortable truths about your own incompetence. Most people quit at why. Number 2. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, had a brutal daily practice. He'd list everything that could go wrong before it happened. Not to prevent it, to remove the shock value when it inevitably did. He understood something profound. Surprise is what kills you, not the event itself. Power Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Your own thumbscrew is your unexamined failure, the disaster you refuse to study. Elite operators know this. They'll pressure test you until you break, then watch carefully to see what snaps first. That's where they'll strike in negotiations. There's a classified technique used in military strategy called red teaming. You hire people whose only job is to destroy your plan. Find every flaw, exploit every weakness. Corporate giants do this with their own businesses. They pay consultants millions to tell them how they'll fail. Then they fail faster and cheaper. In controlled environments, Ensis Rule 6. Never say you're sorry. It's a sign of weakness. But in the power game, there's a distinction. Apologizing for failure is weak. Announcing that you've extracted value from failure is intimidation. It signals that pain doesn't stop you. Nothing does. Here's what nobody tells you. The most successful people have the highest failure rates. Not despite their success. Because of it. They're running more experiments, taking bigger swings, generating more data points. Your one careful attempt per year can't compete with their 50 explosive tests per quarter. If failure is just expensive education, who's investing more in their learning than you? And here's where it gets really twisted. There's a hidden economy built entirely on other people's disasters. What happens in the secret meetings where billionaires trade failure intelligence? This is going to sound like conspiracy theory until you see the receipts. There are private conferences where entry costs 6 figures. No press, no recordings, no social media, just battle-scarred executives sharing their most expensive mistakes. It's not networking, it's tactical warfare training, using real casualties as case studies. In 2001, when the dot-com bubble exploded, most people saw carnage. A select few saw opportunity maps. They studied which companies died first and why. Then they bought the assets for pennies and built the next generation of tech empires on those digital graveyards. Creative destruction isn't natural. It's engineered by those who understand the patterns. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who started as a slave, taught something radical. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Strip away the inspirational poster vibe, and you get pure tactical psychology. Control the interpretation, control the outcome. Reframe disaster as reconnaissance, and suddenly you're not losing. You're learning enemy territory. Power Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. But there's a shadow version of this law. Let others fail publicly while you study their mistakes privately. They pay the price in reputation and capital. You collect the intelligence for free. Then you execute their vision correctly and claim innovation. Ensis Rule 39. There is no such thing as coincidence. When 3 major competitors in the same industry collapse within months of each other, the survivors aren't lucky. They're positioned. They've been watching the market indicators, seeing the stress fractures, and they've already moved their assets before the earthquake. Here's the disturbing part. Some venture capitalists deliberately overfund startups, knowing they'll implode. Why? Because failure generates data faster than success. A company burning through $50 million in 18 months teaches you more about market gaps than a slow growth business teaches in 5 years. They're not funding companies. They're funding experiments. And they don't care which ones explode. When was the last time you studied someone else's disaster to avoid repeating it? Drop the word Phoenix in the comments if you're ready to stop hiding your failures and start weaponizing them. And if you've ever learned more from losing than winning, share that story below. Smash that like button if this is hitting different and subscribe to the channel. But wait, there's a psychological trap in this methodology that can destroy you from the inside. How? The failure obsession industry profits from your disasters. Let's talk about the addiction nobody mentions. There's a subset of entrepreneurs who become failure junkies. They're so hooked on the drama of collapse and comeback that they sabotage stability. The chaos becomes their identity. And when you're addicted to the narrative of rising from ashes, you'll keep lighting fires just to feel alive. Power Law 46. Never appear too perfect. But here's the trap. When you embrace imperfection as strategy, you risk normalizing incompetence. There's a razor-thin line between strategic vulnerability and actual dysfunction. Cross it, and you're not a phoenix. You're just someone who keeps making the same mistakes with better PR. In the early 2000s, Blockbuster had multiple chances to buy Netflix. They passed. Their failure wasn't lack of information. It was arrogance mixed with past success that made them blind to disruption. Meanwhile, Netflix had already failed at multiple business models before finding streaming. One company died because they feared changing a winning formula. The other dominated because they treated every model as disposable. There's a concept in Stoic philosophy called amor fati, of fate, not acceptance. Love. Nietzsche popularized it, but the Stoics lived it. It means treating every disaster as necessary, even desirable. Sounds empowering until you realize some people use it to excuse bad decisions instead of learning from them. Ensis Rule 51. Sometimes you're wrong. The deadliest operators in business know exactly when they're wrong and pivot immediately. The casualties are people who confuse confidence with correctness. They'll ride a sinking ship all the way down because admitting error feels like defeat. Meanwhile, the winners have already abandoned ship and are building a new one. Here's the conspiracy most people don't want to face. The self-help industry makes billions selling you failure redemption narratives. They need you to fail. They need you to struggle, because struggle creates customers. A person who succeeds on the first try doesn't buy the next course, the next book, the next seminar. Your repeated failures are someone else's business model. So what's the real move? Fail fast, fail cheap, extract maximum intelligence, then move with surgical precision. Don't romanticize the pain. Use it as fuel, not identity. Because the moment failure becomes who you are instead of what you did, you're trapped. Type adapt in the comments if you're done making the same mistakes and ready to iterate smarter. If you've ever been stuck in a failure loop and finally broke free, tell us how in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And if someone you know needs to hear this brutal truth, share this video right now. It might save them years of pain.